Hey, welcome to tonight's episode of the Dr. Jeff Experience. We're so glad to have you. Had a little technical difficulty, but we worked it all out now, and I am excited for tonight to bring you a special guest, a friend of mine, a colleague, and just a tremendously smart person. I can't wait. Matter of fact, let's just bring her right on in.
Good evening, Dr. Fauntleroy. Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Techika Rhodes. How are you? We're so glad to have you, and welcome to the Dr. Jeff Experience. It is my pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
So, I'm going to start right off with you telling us who Dr. Techika C. Rhodes is. How did you get to this place? What's your story?
Sure thing. I, of course, had very humble beginnings, born in Mississippi, raised in Chicago for a time, and spent most of my life in Fort Smith, Arkansas, born to the parents of Reverend Isabella Poole and Dexter Strong. And so Mississippi is my humble beginnings. And of course, grew up being taught, morals and principles, faith-based principles, raised in the church. That's a big part of my story as well. And of course, matriculating, as a young person in school would always gravitate to the many opportunities presented, whether that was singing, running track, science fairs, what have you. And through every stage that I've lived through in school, I was always doing something, finding my hands busy, and just trying to learn because I love to learn. I like to say I'm a lifetime student. So that is my beginnings. And of course, moving to Little Rock, Arkansas at a certain point after graduating the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. And at that time, I was informed that Wesley Theological Seminary was wanting 2 students to come and view their college day. And so the director there at that time, Reverend Jenna Green, she reached out to myself and another young man who has just graduated, went to that school. And after matriculating there, I received my certification in African American Church Studies, but I wanted to keep going. So I reached out to our dear colleague, Bishop Lamar McIntyre, who's also doctor. And that is how I became to be doctor and to go to Howard University School of Divinity. So that's in a nutshell.
That's a very interesting way of arriving to the Mecca.
Absolutely.
It's a very interesting journey. And I'm so proud of all of that you have accomplished and that you are doing. I'm proud to say that you're my classmate and colleague.
Likewise.
We've had an interesting ride at the Howard University School of Divinity, and next to Morehouse School of Religion at ITC. I say that there's no other like the two of them. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you mentioned about your background. So you would say that church played heavily in your upbringing?
Absolutely. So my mother had me in church literally as a newborn baby in Mississippi, and she continued to have us to go to church all of my life. That's all I know is church. And so also, along with elementary, there were opportunities at church to become involved and utilize leadership skills as well. And for me, mainly it was singing. From a little girl on up, I would lead songs in the choir. There were a few times where I was asked to give a word or speak during the prayer meeting. But for the most part, singing is something that really cultivated my leadership skills in the church.
So as you were coming up and you found yourself in that leadership track within the church, did you question anything? Did you have questions about what we now would know would be theological questions and just questions in general about like what's underneath this? I often talk to younger seminary students or younger pastors about the importance of carrying the shovel with you all the time.
Absolutely.
Every day you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed. And when you go to bed, keep that shovel on the side of your bed, because God will tap you on your shoulder and have you dig even deeper.
Right.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll find yourself with a shovel of some sort. And when I say shovel, there they all are.
Yes.
All of those. Those are the shovels that you will keep by your side wherever you go 24/7. So did you find yourself wanting to know more?
Absolutely. So first off, as a young child, preschool, coming into the kindergarten ages, I was the child who would stay inside in my room and I would read the Bible. I would read books. So a lot of times, it's not that I didn't play with other children, but many times I was thirsty and hungry for more as a young child. And then to add to that, as I matriculated in the church, as I grew up, there were different things that happened in life, and that piqued my interest too, because I always, believed in God, but sometimes there are those questions of, God, why did this or why did that happen? So those were the two things that happened during that time.
Yeah, talk more about that hunger and thirst. I don't think people really understand what's behind that. We talk about having a thirst or a hunger, and a lot of people, I'll say many people, would believe that that's wanting to hear a message or wanting to be in church. But when you hunger and thirst for more, it goes beyond just being in church.
That's true. That's true. So I would say my mother was a very big part of that hunger and that thirst, because my mom taught me from a young age different things about the Bible. And I was a very inquisitive child. And to be honest, I'm still inquisitive today. But I would ask her many questions, and she would take the time, to answer those questions if she could. She would take the time to, teach me about, prayer and things of that nature. And then also, when I would hear people talking about the Bible and I was nearby, I would just be interested to hear more of the narrative, and to hear, I didn't know at the time, but more of other people's theological stances and how people sort of navigate through that process.
Yeah. So that's interesting, Dr. Rhodes. Listen, if you're listening, guys, I want to take this moment to urge you, if you're watching us on YouTube, to like and subscribe so that you can get more of these interesting talks. And if you're on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, talk to a friend. Let them know that we've got some interesting conversation going on here at the Dr. Jeff Experience. We're here with Dr. Techika C. Rhodes. Now, you've got some letters behind your name. Talk to us.
I do.
This.
Yes. So the letters, D Min, of course, Doctor of Ministry. Then, of course, I at Wesley received my Master of Divinity with a certification in African American Church Studies. And then undergrad, I received a Bachelor of Sociology, Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, and an Associate of Arts in General Studies.
So the AACS is African American Church Studies.
Yes, it's a specialization that they offer at Wesley Theological Seminary, and I'm so grateful. It's a wonderful program.
Boy, this is going to be interesting because we're going to go there.
Okay.
Go there. So, Techika, like you, from my beginning, I was baptized and started in church. Actually, I used to go to a Catholic church with my aunts at an early age, and then I was baptized in high school and went to the church that I ended up being licensed at. But after high school, I actually practiced Islam for a few years, and that was very interesting. It taught me a lot of discipline.
Absolutely.
It taught me theology. The Quran is a very interesting book, and I found myself leaving that and kind of wandering, and then going back to a church where my mother was, which was an Episcopal church where I spent a great deal of time, probably about 11, 12 years. And no, not that long. Probably about, let me see my children, probably about seven to 8 years. It was a while. And I ended up in leadership there and had a very progressive pastor there. As a matter of fact, he was formerly a Baptist minister. Reverend Earl S. Pierce, good friend. He passed away, and great man. And he told me, he said one day, Jeff, it will be okay with me if you left because I see there's a calling on your life. And I know
That's
that
awesome.
I know you are looking for more, and I urge you to continue on. And from there, after being married, we went to the Baptist church where I first went to. But I say all that to say that throughout that time, when I accepted a call and started learning more about this ministry thing and this whole God thing, I always wanted to hear more and more and more. And I always questioned more, not of a unbelief, but of wanting to know that it was more than just what we did in church.
Absolutely.
It was more than just the science of church, and it was more. And I, like you, I had this hunger and thirst, and I just continued to learn and learn and learn. And as I got older, I said, well, I need to go to school for some organized study, because I always studied, but I needed some organized study. So with you, I'm glad to see that you started younger. And was that your trajectory with always wanting to know more? Was it more about God, or were you interested in what's happening in church, or what was the journey?
So, of course, it was wanting to know more about God. And I think as far as the church, a lot of us, we're just so used to sort of the pattern or the pathologies of church. So I don't know if at that time I thought as much about that. For example, why perhaps the order of service happens the way it does, sort of that liturgical piece. Back then I didn't know it was that. I just knew I'm going to church and this is what we do. The prayer starts, and then after the prayer, choir marches in. I kind of grew up a little bit of that as well. And then the preaching. And so it was just such a refreshing thing when I finally went to seminary. And now, I'm able to have language, that coincides or corresponds with what I'm seeing and the experiences that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, so that leads me to this question, because I don't know about you, but when I got to Morehouse the School of Religion for my master's program. Dr. Rhodes, the first 2 weeks I was there, my head almost exploded. Like, what are these people talking about? This is crazy. It started the deconstruction of everything that had been learned and taught and preached up to that point. How did you handle, or did you go through a deconstruction period where you thought to yourself, whoa, I thought I knew what I was talking about, and I see I don't?
So I did go through some of that deconstruction because, I was hearing words that I had never heard before, different ways of interpreting the scripture. So that was definitely interesting. But at the same time, I was prepared in the sense that I attended Waters Temple Church of God in Christ, and that's in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I attended there while in undergrad, and they had a Saturday morning Bible study under the leadership of Dr. Vernon Briscoe, who taught us New Testament advanced studies.
Oh.
So that prepared me for seminary. So, for example, when I'm hearing something like triune God, which is basically, talking about the Trinity,
right?
I wasn't confused or what is that, because I had been exposed, for 3 years in this advanced New Testament studies, with different members of the church and things of that nature. So I guess maybe I could say I kind of had the best of both worlds. There was room to learn and grow and hear things that I had never heard, but at the same time, I had, a foundation as well.
That's it. That's interesting, and that's good to hear that you had an appetite and you knew what you wanted to eat, so to speak.
Yes.
Because you had the hors d'oeuvres in advance.
Yes, sir.
You can tell I'm a foodie, right? But so now where did this take place? Your first exposure to not just the deconstruction, but the whole crafting, the whole learning experience. Did that happen at Wesley, or was it before then?
It happened at Wesley because when I was at Waters Temple, of course, they gave us opportunity to, preach and put together sermons. But I would say that Wesley is really where that process started because, I was exposed to, different concordances and things of that nature. And I had never, or I may have seen it, on the shelves of others, but I had never dived into it. So I would say that Wesley was really when I was able to experience that.
So that's when you started getting into the hermeneutics, homiletics, and all of that.
Exactly.
Sort of okay.
Exactly. Because before that, when I was at church, you pick scriptures, of course, you do your research, but it's not until, I went to Wesley, African American Church Studies, and they talked about, hermeneutics and hermeneutics of suspicion and all of these different things.
Yeah. And that's when you got those shovels.
Right.
That's when you got those shovels and you started digging. So yes. Now your time at Wesley, as opposed to your time at Howard. No, let me reframe that. So we're at Wesley.
Yes.
And are you starting to discover a niche or a road that's kind of being carved out for you specifically?
Yes. And what helped with that was they had practice of ministry and mission. And so at Wesley, it may be changed a little bit now, but we had to intern for 2 years at a particular site. Oh, wow. And so that really helped to cultivate, the place where I was going, because I had always wanted to know about faith-based nonprofits. I was always interested in it, but I didn't know sort of the nuts and bolts of it. And so at Wesley, I was able to intern first. I did a sort of like a bivocational internship where I was on the ministry staff at Wisconsin Avenue Baptist in DC. And I also helped with their youth nonprofit, Citygate. And so that helped. And then that second year, I was really empowered being at the water office. That's the Women's Alliance for Theology, Ethics, and Ritual in Silver Spring, Maryland, excuse me. And that really, really helped me because that was when I was exposed to social justice, more of social justice as it pertains to women, feminists. That's when I really, to be honest, I had heard a little bit about womanism, but I was able to be exposed even the more through that. And so that really helped me to know more of what I wanted to do.
So that's, oh man, it's so great. You're checking all the boxes for me, Dr. Rhodes. So and that's the part that I'll teeter on right now and go into a little further. But the practical side of ministry, you got early on in dealing with it in a nonprofit sense, because many people think that, and this is one of the things that I'm waving the flag on to a lot of our seminaries and a lot of our professors, that we've got to make people understand that going to seminary, when you have a call on your life and wanting to learn more about theology and everything else, it doesn't mean that the one track is for preaching and teaching.
Absolutely.
The nonprofit, that's the area that I'm in. It's the practical side. I've been a pastor, I've been assistant pastor, I've been ministry leader, I've been, you name it, I've been in the church. But the latter side, I've always seen the practical part of it and what's needed in industry. So you got to see it firsthand and participate. Now, did you grapple onto that and say, okay, this is where I want to be?
I did. And so even though I have not, opened a nonprofit as of yet, through, the divinity school and the doctoral program, I was able to, through one of the courses, be able to put on paper what that would look like, what that vision statement, that mission statement, the naming of it, just put it all on paper. Because a lot of times, we cultivate and we want to create something, but sometimes it's nothing like having it on paper, written in the ink, so that can kind of help you along the way. Of course, with mentors and things of that nature, but that's also helpful.
Yeah. So here we are with Wesley, and we are doing a internship, which opens your eyes into the nonprofit space. And then we start at Howard University.
Correct.
School of Divinity. So let's talk about that adventure.
Yes.
Tell me how that went for you, how that experience, what did it do? How did it change things? What was that experience like for you?
Sure. So before that, I want to preface it by saying that me being in the African American Church Studies program at Wesley is one of the things that inspired me to be at the Divinity School, because I already had a foundation concerning the Black church, of course, the historical happenings of slavery and all these things, and the resilience and all of these things. But I wanted something deeper. And so coming to Howard University School of Divinity, of course, it really helped. And it helped to change and to strengthen me even the more, to be able to be in the classes with your colleagues, to be able to have really rich discussions that you would not normally be able to have, if you're out, say, at a church discussion or something like that. Just being able to talk to those colleagues really helped. And the professors really, they really helped to affirm you in many ways as well. Of course, there were some things that, they definitely want to help fine tune you, if that makes sense, and kind of smooth out some of those growing edges and help you to learn more of who you are. But it was also very affirming. I remember one course in particular I took with Dr. Barbara Fears, who was also the chair for my thesis. It was Women in Ministry. And that really, really just helped to transform me in many ways because she helped us to see, along with my colleagues, the different scenarios that might take place, but at the same time, how you can advocate for yourself at times and just be that both professional, but also being led by the Spirit. And as the Divinity School says, leading with both head and heart. So it was a joy to be there. The interesting thing about it is that in 2017, I was at Wesley at that time, and I learned about Dean Pierce being installed at that time. And so that was my first time being on the grounds of the School of Divinity. And little did I know, 4 years later, I matriculated to the Divinity School. I learned so much from professors, colleagues, and I would also say too that I had the privilege to grow even more because it was not only attending the Divinity School, but I was able to, serve on the administration as well with Dean Gilbert and others, and just really get more of an inside picture of what all it takes to, run the Divinity School. And, as you said earlier, many times when people see the Divinity School or seminary, they're thinking preaching. And so one thing that we try to do, and we continue to try to do when we talk to whoever, is to let them know that it's really more interdisciplinary now. Years ago, people were going, to be clergy, to be preachers, but now there are so many avenues that you can go through. And Dr. Fauntleroy, if I'm not mistaken, you do something you are an officer, is that correct? And
yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, with Dr. Trulier, I was able to put together my concentration with ministry and social justice and ministry and criminal justice. And a lot of people were like, wow, really? That at seminary? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because when they talk about ministry in both of those settings, ministry and social justice is how God is involved in social justice.
Absolutely.
A Christ, that dark-skinned Palestinian Christ that we know, how he was there for justice for the people, how he stood up against the Roman Empire, how he stood up against injustice. And when it comes to ministry and criminal justice, it talks again, and it taught us about how we can be God-fearing people and how we have to be involved within the system without being the system.
Absolutely.
So it taught us that balance of God and justice. So my experience, I was 25 years in law enforcement. And then I had my own investigation firm at one time. That was sort of a question for me, even though I was still involved in pastoring and in ministry. How do I incorporate all of those? Because I still had the call and the urgency to serve in ministry, but mine was more on the practical side. So of course, my major thing, my dissertation was the importance of community partnerships, law enforcement, faith institutions, and community working together for a better community. I just posted something today. My former police department where I retired from, the chief now and the chief before then, Chief Henry White, who's a great friend of mine, he retired, but yet he still serves as a volunteer with the police department. And they just had a turkey giveaway, food giveaway, but they do awesome stuff within the community. And it's always partnering with the faith organizations. They have something called the Fellowship of Churches. And some of the members who are pastors of the Fellowship of Churches are also chaplains for the police department. So it all ties in, and they're a perfect example. And we've been doing this for years. We've been community oriented. I served as a Board of Education member while I was a policeman and in ministry. So I always had the DNA to do this. So now I took the practical, and through seminary, I was able to put the practical into practice.
Absolutely. Yes.
And thank God for our professors who were able to get that out of us. It was always the question, what are you going to do with this?
That's right.
I mean, what are you going to just put this certificate on the wall and go out and introduce yourself as Dr. Rhodes, Dr.
Right.
Dr. whatever, and that's it? Or what are you going to do with this? Because what I love about Howard, Dr. Rhodes, was that is that they made me feel that their name was on the line.
Yes.
So just as you don't want to let your parents down, you don't want to let them down and the name of Howard University.
Absolutely.
It's near and dear to me. My dad is a graduate, my sister, my brother, my niece. We're generational Howard people.
Yes.
But then attending, the professors, I never forget, one of the professors, he called me around 9:00 at night. And he said, Reverend Mr. Fauntleroy, I don't see your paper. And I'm going, I know I sent it. And he says, well, go check. And I was like, man, it's 9:00. Really? I got to get up and go. So I went down to my computer, went to my office, and opened up my email and saw that it was in my draft. I never pushed send. So I said, sir, I'm pushing send. It was in my draft. I'm so sorry. I thought I sent it. He said, okay, push send. I'm waiting.
Absolutely.
He got it. He said, okay, I have it. You can go back to what you were doing. I said, well, I was asleep. He said, well, you can go back to sleep now. And so can I. That right there showed me the commitment that they had for us. Instead of us just being a number, we were important to them, and they were determined to make sure that we understood what it was that was being taught, but understood that excellence is the only thing that's expected from them. So that stayed with me forever. And I just tell people, go to seminary.
Absolutely.
Early on, now I'm a little older, a little more seasoned. Seminary wasn't a big thing with us as preachers. They used to call it seminary cemetery. I remember the
right.
Yes. Don't go to seminary. They're gonna twist your mind all up, and it's the Bible. The Bible is everything. That's all you need, just the Bible. King James. Right. King James. Don't go to them other versions.
Exactly.
That ain't holy. So here we are. Here we are. You have done your dissertations, and oh yeah, wow, my wife is on it, man. She graduated with us, Dr. Rhodes. And let me mention this. Here's the other thing. You talk about diversity within. Now you came out the year after me. And in your class, you were, now I was the oldest in my class. If your class took it to a whole nother level, and I was shocked
Right.
when I heard the exact age, because as you and I know, the energy that was exhibited by this sister, I can't think of her name, Dr.
Fowler.
Dr. Marie Fowler.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Marie Fowler graduated, and how old?
I believe 83.
And she does not mind us telling her age.
Absolutely.
She will tell you she will say it with her chest.
Yes.
She is 83 years old, and she was a firecracker, ball of energy, and smart as could be.
Yes.
And, if you guys ever go to YouTube and just type in Dr. Marie Fowler,
absolutely,
University, you'll see her story. It was interesting. So we had diversity.
Yes.
We had young, we had older, we had seasoned, we had people who were in church, people who weren't in church,
right,
but want to know more. So we had diversity with us at Howard. Exactly. And I think that meant so much because we got to hear different people's stories. And here's a question. How has your education changed or influenced your religious ideology? And how are you using this D Min at this time? Boy, she got it in before me.
Yes, thank you so much. So yes, it has changed my ideology because, of course, growing up in the South, there's certain things that you're taught, and that kind of sticks with you. However, once I attended Wesley, attended Howard University School of Divinity, my ideology of theology was definitely broadened, even as it relates to the context of ministry, because most people think the church, once again, but going to the nonprofit and joining on some podcasts and sharing readings and all of these different things, I was able to see that there could still be a faith-based component even outside of the church's walls. And that was something that I wanted to do as well. I was really hungry to see what can be done outside of the church. Of course, I've always been in the church. I will always be a part of the church and in the church, but what can I do outside? And so that was something that was just such a great thing for me. And what I'm doing with my Doctor of Ministry now, as a matter of fact, just a little bit over 2 weeks ago, I was privileged to present at the 116th Holy Convocation of the Church of God in Christ, Dean Ware. He afforded me that privilege, and it was me. It was a lady named Dr. Valerie Thompson, and the other name I'm trying to remember. It escapes me now. I apologize for that. But we were all able to present in the session. They had different sessions going on, and was able to get great feedback and be connected to a publisher. So I'm looking forward to working on publishing a manual that I created, Burnout Prevention, a manual for evangelists in the Church of God in Christ. That was inspired through my time at the Church of God in Christ, ministering in different capacities, and doing things such as this. And I am looking forward to doing more. I'm thinking about writing a book on sort of the relevance and the creativity of African Americans with their contributions in music and things of that nature. So that's something that I may be doing a little further along, but right now just focusing with the publication that will be taking place hopefully by next year.
Great. And as you can see, you remember my wife, she met you.
Yes, I do.
Congratulations. She's very proud of you.
Lovely lady.
Let me say this, 2 things. One, let me say this. I love my brothers and sisters from the Church of God in Christ, because they will let you know with their chest, Church of God of Christ.
Right.
And my hero from way back, Dr. G.E. Patterson.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I watched him faithfully
Yes.
every Sunday after church. And if I didn't go to church, I still watched him at home. Um, Boy, he was and still is. I go back and watch some of his messages. He was an Old Testament king,
Absolutely.
and I
Yes.
loved it. I loved it. But you're talking about publishing. I'm glad to hear that. I often tell folks that until we tell our story, there's a passage, and I don't know if I'm saying this right. So let me just try it. They say that until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be the hero.
Right.
Until we tell our story, will always be misinterpreted. So it's very good for you, myself, and others to write the story.
Yes.
Write the story, publish, talk about it, get it out there, and tell your story.
Absolutely.
We need to hear each other's story. That's why when we started, I asked you, tell me your story. How
Yeah.
did you get to where you are? So now you're and I don't want you to talk more about this because I had the privilege of hearing about it early on about you dealing with burnout in the church. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So myself personally, for those who really know me, I love to help. I mean, it brings me joy to help. And so I've always been that person that would say, if you need someone, I'm there. And so, of course, I worked helped with the kitchen committee. I was helping with the youth department. I was in the choir. I would, stand in the place, for the pastor when needed Bible studies and things of that nature. So I've always been that type of person that I've always had my hands in more than one thing at any given time. But what I found is that because I did not take proper rest and, really just have time for me, I found myself, I was burnt out. So by the time I went to seminary, I had a season there where although I was, of course, attending chapels and things of that nature, I needed time to sort of like recalibrate. And then, of course, after I had that time, I was able to, get involved with, the music at the school and serving on student council and things of that nature. But it was just that starting point for me. I just really needed that rest. And it just got me to thinking also because I've noticed others, like other evangelists and things of that nature, that they were getting burned out and they were getting tired. And so it was really, for me, a thought of, what information, what research can I find that's going to help people along the way. And so it was a privilege to do that. And the second reason why it was a privilege is because I wanted to also give back to a denomination that certainly has helped me in such a tremendous way. Previous to me, because I was in the Baptist church for many years, and of course, I learned many things there. But I was in the music ministry predominantly. So it was when I went to the Church of God in Christ that I began to really have more of an understanding of what my ministry was. But I also needed to know that other piece of how can we rest, how can we recalibrate, so that we can show up as better people.
That's awesome. So would you say now that your work, your path is in the direction of burnout within the church, especially for African American women or women in general? Is that your
So yeah,
projection?
I would say my path is, I would say it's bivocational. So it is that, But it's also through this last couple of years, I've come to realize that also my ministry and my service is needed in higher education. And so that's the other piece.
Oh, that's excellent. That is excellent. I tell you, I truly understand the burnout piece. It put me in the hospital for a while, and to the point where I had to retire from pastoring when I was in Tampa. Um, it was to the point where I couldn't walk. My
Wow.
wrist dropped. I had an autoimmune disease that put me down, and stress was one of the leading causes. Um, and then I just got tired of church. I tried to come back afterwards and I served, but I got tired of, and I can say this now because I can back it up. I didn't get tired of God,
Right.
but I got tired of the acrobatics of church.
Yes.
And I'm gonna lean into you on this as we discuss this a little further, but I'll start it off. The difficult part of this, Dr. Rhodes, was now with all of this education and knowing what you know, and thank God I had mentors along the way that constantly let me know that now once you get out of here, don't you go up there trying to preach and teach this right away.
Right. Right.
It's a slow turn of the wheel.
Yes.
And I've seen some people, I was going to say younger, but it's not just younger. I've seen some of our peers graduate, or as they were matriculating, try to throw this as if it was as my commanders did when throwing the Hail Mary, hoping that they could score a touchdown. It was similar to that. They were throwing out this seminary language,
Mm-hmm.
and they turned the wheel very quickly. And a lot of people fell off because they didn't know what they were talking about. The people didn't know what the pastor was talking about.
Right.
Pastor hadn't practiced what he learned enough to talk about it in the particular setting. So I have found myself now similar to a chef with culinary arts experience going to a restaurant just for dinner. It ain't the same. And it can become difficult at times to be in a place where you expect a good meal and the meal ain't that good. And you got to sit there
Right.
and you got to eat the meal for the sake of being nice or not
Right.
being disruptive. There's conversations that you will be part of that now that you are Dr. Rhodes, Dr. Fauntleroy, folks expect you to jump in or maybe not.
Right.
And you have to really depend on God to give you discernment on what to say, what not to say, if to say, all of that. So, have you found yourself in all these situations and how have you managed them?
Yes. So I think for me, because I'm thinking of something right now, specifically when I was in seminary, and of course, we would meet in the refectory, the cafeteria area. And of course, that's where everybody gets together and they talk about, their theological stances and things of that nature. And I remember one day we were talking, having a discussion, and everyone at the table, they all, agreed concerning this one particular thought. And I expressed, well, I think differently. And everyone at the table, they were just looking shocked and like, how can you? And things of that nature. So, for the like seminary people, some of that has, already happened. And then I would say, since graduating, there have been a few times where I'm just out and about, your everyday errands or whatever you're doing. And then, you just kind of have to gently educate folks. I remember recently was traveling and a gentleman had a particular thought process concerning people of the African diaspora and sort of them being able to, learn about themselves and knowledge and things of that nature. And so, it was then at that time where I could kind of, share and gently, say, well, actually, it's not quite that, and I think that being at Howard University, certainly beforehand, but certainly after being at Howard University, it does empower you, to, kind of share with people, well, actually, maybe consider this way or that way. So, yes, I have experienced some of it.
Yeah, I go back to, and I can't remember if it was Paul Tillich or Dietrich Bonhoeffer that talked about having the Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other.
Yes.
And the importance of that. So we learn to neutralize things.
Exactly.
So since this road that you're on now in the doctoral space, have you started to see you kind of I guess I'm not going to say lose friendships, but have you started to see yourself kind of your tribe starting to decrease, so to speak?
So the tribe that I have now, the main tribe, we actually met in seminary, and we're actually still really good friends. And so we talk all the time. But however, I have still experienced some of that. And it's particularly when, you come to your hometown or people that you grew up with as friends. And you do kind of hear, some of those kind of subtle comments, or sort of the comparison of maybe a degree or something that they obtained, but you receive this and sort of maybe like unexpectancy at some point as well. Yeah, like, I made it here, but you made it here, like, wow. And so, yes, I have experienced some of that. However, I think I've been able to, take it in and just, just be gentle about it and just go on, because I think that comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm. So do you find yourself still wanting to and I think most people now know the difference when we say teach and or preach. They know the difference, but it's both the same, because we are now in an age of information where you have to teach in your preach. The days of 3 points and a hoop, I don't know. It's good food every now and then, but we need full nourishment now.
That's right.
So I asked the question again, especially being a woman in this space, which I really hate even making that statement, but it's true,
right?
As we just saw. Being a woman in this space, tell me some of the nuances with that.
Yes. So I would say being a woman, and not only that, I think I'll also add a woman of the African diaspora as well. I mean, being in this space, I mean, you make your way, you make your own pathway. But of course, there is some struggle in that. There are times when, you have to advocate for yourself, or you find yourself advocating, for others who are marginalized, and yet you are marginalized as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a sense of, you have some type of understanding, but also, being open to try to understand others as well. But it can definitely be difficult.
That just hit me. I'm sorry. I never looked at it like that. That's big.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. No problem.
That was deep.
Yes. So, of course, being in this space, you have your struggles. There may be times where you have to kind of work a little harder than others, to get a seat at the table, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, once again, being of African descent, we've had to, for so long, had to find ways to be resilient, right? And overcome and make it. Yes, there are some changes happening, but that is still an ever-present thing. And so, but I think for me personally, many times throughout my life, it's sort of been that push, right? So it didn't just come now that I've arrived at being a doctor and matriculating on to pursue another doctorate here in the next month and a half. It's that throughout my life, as I matriculated through life, I've had to have a sort of fortitude and a sort of determination to keep going, whatever that thing was that I needed to do.
Yeah, that's good. My brother KC Blankenbuehler, he says, Dr. Fauntleroy, it's all about your life experience and dedication to education, not the title. Yeah, so true.
True.
So true. The title just goes with it, but it's all about your life experience and dedication. Thank you, KC, for that. Listen, before we close, I just need to make sure that it's just not me. I heard you going for another doctorate.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, I'm looking to do the same thing all over again. I don't know what it is. I'm almost miserable with not being in school or something. I just finished today. I got 4 certifications in artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
Through something called Coursive. And I was so proud of myself once I completed today. I just completed.
Yes.
It's like, yay! I got more certificates. I got more stuff. And it was so interesting to see what I can do and what you can do through AI. And I also saw on the back end how 60 Minutes had a special on it, actually. And I looked further into it, how AI is developing. So we think that AI is going to eliminate humans, but humans are what's feeding AI. And the more we use it, it's like a good sports car. The more you drive it, the better it becomes.
Yes.
So that was big for me. But yeah, how do you find yourself with this now? I mean, do you feel like me? And I've talked to other people. It's like you're a lifelong learner.
I am. I definitely am a lifelong learner. I've always, for years have obtained, different certifications and things of that nature. But, like I said, working at Howard University as an administrator, that also, fueled the fire for me to go a little bit further. And I'm pursuing a doctorate of education. And so it's just been a beautiful journey, starting at Wesley Theological Seminary, working there as a teaching assistant. This is while I was in the doctoral program at Howard. So those things have just helped me to say, you know what, let me go ahead and, get some more knowledge and experience, and so that I can show up as a better person.
Dr. Rhodes, you have been a great guest. You made it so easy for me because you checked all the boxes by yourself.
I'm glad to hear it.
Right along to the end. So the next time that we hear from you, you will be involved in the educational path.
Yes, sir.
And we can then call you Doctor
Yes, sir. And
Rhodes.
likewise.
And yeah, I'm teetering with two things. I'm looking more towards the political science at Clark University. So
Wonderful.
yeah, we're looking at that. But I'm looking forward to hearing from all that you will contribute to this world. And I know your work is going to be worldwide, especially in education and especially with that burnout
Yes, sir.
within leadership in the church. That's special. That is from God. So I thank you for letting the audience know what's taking place in the life of Dr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your educational pursuits and the story of how you got from there to there.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are going to replay this and share it with their friends because so many questions, and I still have some things we didn't get to, but we will get to it later on. We'll bring you back if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Because one of the things, and I'll just ask you real quick.
Sure.
This is tough, but, and I hate even saying it, but it's the truth. Is the Black church still relevant?
I think the Black church is still relevant, but I also think that we have a lot of things in the Black church that we need to work on in order to expand our horizons and become even more relevant.
And when we talk about or we describe the Black church, it's not a knock on any other church, a multicultural, multi-ethnic church, whatever kind of church. It's our culture, and but that doesn't mean it's not open to others with cultural likes or cultural things that we deal with.
Yes.
It's about us knowing our history.
That's right.
It's about us knowing from where we come from. Our journey didn't start off with slavery.
That's right. That's right.
Our journey started off way before that.
Yes.
And we were enslaved for a time period, but we never lost God. We never lost our spirituality. We never lost God in the process.
That's right.
We practiced differently.
Yes.
But we still had God. So it's important for us to be in an environment where we can still learn that and still be one with all folks.
That's right. Yes.
So it's very important. So thank you again. Thank you again. God bless you. May you continue to go forward and teach and preach and just do God's work. I pray for good health.
Thank you.
I pray for doors, many more doors to open for you. And as we talk about at Morehouse, that Sankofa, as you go forward, don't forget to reach back.
That's exactly right.
And bring others with you.
Yes, sir.
So God bless you. We want you to continue to go out and meet needs and solve problems. That's our theme. That's my theme. That's my statement for all of you. Thank you for being with us tonight on the Dr. Jeff Experience. Man, go out, have a great Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much.
Yes.
Get some exercise. Make sure you drink plenty of water and stretch. God bless you. Don't go anywhere, Dr. Rhodes. I'm going to end the stream, but don't you go anywhere. Thank you, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week. God bless you.
Happy Thanksgiving. God bless.